I am fully aware of nature's true philosophy. If you can teach me the local language, you would be amazed to see the knowledge that I would pass on. Whatever he said during his childhood, he continues to say the same thing even today. He did not get the opportunity to complete his conventional education. He could not get the opportunity to become familiar with the prevailing shastras, scriptures, and philosophies as well. He could not even get time to read them on his own because with the rise in the number of disciples and devotees, his time was spent with them and he did not get any spare time for himself. When he attended school, devotees and disciples would gather outside the classroom to curiously observe how their guru attended classes like a normal student. It is all but natural for the devotee's disciples to be curious about how he could attend class like a normal child, do lessons and sums, while at other times he was leading others to the ocean of philosophy and immersing them in that knowledge, and all were spellbound by the supernatural incidents that he naturally exhibited. What a surprise! It is not all. Often, the devotee disciples would request the headmaster, saying, "Kindly grant our guru permission to leave as we would want to take him to so-and-so place for an important engagement." Some among those who came and requested were important people from the society, so the headmaster was unable to refuse. His student life was spent in this manner. At the end, as it was evident that it was becoming difficult to continue the education process, he finally ended the phase and moved to Dhaka, Bangladesh. Thakur had completely imbibed the tradition of his ancestors, who studied the Vedas and were known for their knowledge of the same, Vedagya. He was never preoccupied with the people in the upper echelons of society. He, from his childhood, tried to impart the core knowledge of the Vedas and their true spirit to people from every stratum of society. In alignment with the tradition of Vedic equality as practiced by his ancestors and equipped with the true knowledge of the universe and that of nature's Veda, he shared the divine knowledge with everyone around. As he was born with the innate knowledge of the universe, he did not need to gain the bookish knowledge of the Vedas. The core philosophy of the Vedas was reflected in his words and speeches. He was happy with sharing the knowledge, the love, the devotion, and did not look for anything in return. In his own words, he said, "I am the gardener of the flower garden. I am happy when the flowers blossom." To meet the day-to-day needs of life, he preferred to earn through labor and toil, which was aligned with the practices of his ancestors as well. He never depended on donations and unwelcome compassion from anyone in the name of religion and spirituality. If someone brought offerings in the way of love and devotion, and refusing the same would hurt the giver, he used to accept the same and immediately distribute among others. These traits of his character, right from a young age, distinguished him as a person. He was never averse to hard work as right from his minor age, he used to clean and mend his four-sloped roof called chautala every day, and kept it neat and tidy with his own toil. On one side, there was the accounting office full of bustling, quarreling, and fighting. On the other side was his chautala, an unbelievably calm and serene hut. He had built the small hut with his own hands and with help from devotees and disciples. The hut had a boundary with bamboos, and the roof was made of the lower part of the bamboos. The roof was covered with creepers that hid the bamboos, and only the red flowers of the creepers were visible. The front of the compound was decorated with many flowering plants that emanated fragrance. The plants had grown well, nurtured by Thakur's personal care. From outside of the compound, it looked like a cared garden bedecked with plants of jasmine, gardenia, roses, cotton rose, burrflower, marigold, mogra and champal. The plants looked as if someone had trimmed them like small umbrellas, but no one had trimmed them, they naturally grew up that way. The ground under the plant was neatly cured with mud and cow dung. There was no difference between the room and the compound. Thakur used to sit under these trees in meditative state. Disciples and devotees also sat around him chanting the initiation mantra given to them by Thakur. The jasmine flowers dropped on his body and around, as if in attainment of its ultimate goal for the flowers. From time to time Thakur used to host picnic there with his classmates and friends. Thakur used to cook himself assisted by Amol, Naresh, Samod, Aol, Tasadak, Mana, Akas, etc. He observed as well as broke tradition simultaneously, hence to him all the classmates and friends were treated with equality, irrespective of them being Hindus or Muslims. This aspect had recurred and surfaced multiple times in his lifetime. No one would be able to forget the delicious and tasty food prepared by Thakur which they enjoyed. In this way, through such small events, he publicized his preaching about equality and spirituality devoid of traditional dogmas in practical manner. He did not stop by saying that the work is religion. He practiced it in true sense. Hence, millions of Hindus, Muslims, Harijans, outcasts, enjoyed his love, shelter and blessings without any discrimination. He did not have any stipulations for his devotees, however, they felt privileged to follow his directions and teaching due to the infinite pull of his endless and all-encompassing love. From school days he started visiting faraway places in Himalayas along with a couple of his friends during the school holidays. The day he uprooted the divine trident easily from the ground in long mountains, the people of the hills rushed to him in large numbers, out of respect and devotion, to seek spiritual refuge under him. In the past many had tried to dislodge the divine trident, which, according to the folk lore, was planted by Shiva himself, but had failed. The belief reigned that no one other than Shiva, or someone as powerful as a Shiva, would not be able to dislodge the divine trident. Hence, when the people of the hills witnessed Balak THAKUR to dislodge the divine trident with ease, all their doubts and qualms vanished. On the other hand, he became the target of jealousy and bitterness of some powerful seers. However, at the end, they accepted defeat against the superpower of Thakur and came under his blessed folds. The supernatural powers that were evident from the moment of his birth went on to become elevated in quality and innovative with passage of time, and this innate flow of power overwhelmed thousands of people. It is almost impossible to find a parallel example of elevated spiritual life story in history. Can a 6-day-old baby control nature with movement of his hands by beckoning the clouds to start a downpour, pause rain, or cause the rain throughout the day? Can a 2-year-old child exhibit Lagima power and fall off a terrace and descend slowly like a feather and land almost weightless in the lap of an elderly man? Can a 5-year-old child run across a rough river surface wearing a wooden sandal or sit in meditation and float on the river? If we just consider the anima power, there are hundreds of examples of its display in the life of Thakur. It was easy for him to disappear in a moment and go visit faraway place and return immediately. There are many examples where he was omnipresent in 2 places and were involved in 2 different activities at the same time, and people in both the places believed that he was present among them in flesh and blood. It is important to note that these supernatural powers came to him spontaneously, and he never used these powers to satisfy any of his own needs. If anyone referred about these supernatural powers, he would revert saying that these powers are within everyone, except that it was not practiced and cultured. When someone referred to his magical outcome, he mentioned that his philosophy and teachings are magical. The flow of philosophy and teachings that started emanating since he was 5-year-old has continued even now with same spate. He has continued to explain in simple language the otherwise intractable philosophy and kept sharing it with all and sundry, as if he could observe the infinite philosophy of the entire universe in his palm like nail mirror. Someone who had not read philosophies or sastras or Purans was able to explain the core philosophy in an easy-to-understand manner for the masses. Here lies the absolute wonder. He used to tell his classmates, "I am not attached to what is spoken, my philosophy-laden words are my sastras." Every word of him is based on logic and scientific foundation. It is difficult to draw a line when one sits to write about Thakur, hence, the only way to represent is to narrate a selected set of events and incidents from his life. Otherwise, if someone wants to relate all the events and incidents of his life in details, it will become a huge and voluminous book. It is because thousands of devotees and disciples came to him, and he tirelessly kept solving their problems, and among these how many of them were laden with his supernatural powers was difficult to keep a record of. Some of them displayed vibrance of his philosophy as well. Hence, it will be easy to understand that there is no way other than narrating some of the important events and incidents from his life in a chronological and concise manner in this book. There are many similar events and incidents experienced by different disciples and devotees across different time boundaries, and though each looked like a repetition of the same situation, they were distinct and different. Besides, there were incidents when different devotees and disciples cited Thakur at the same time from different places.